Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. I am so glad that you decided to join us today. I wanted to talk to my friend, Dr. Wilmer Leon. He is a noted political scientist, formerly at Howard University, but he's now hosting his radio show. I know he's doing that much inside the issues with Wilmer Leon. And what channel is it on, Wilmer?
Sirius XM channel 110, The Urban View. Saturdays from 11 to 2 Eastern.
Thank you. And as you probably have already noticed, I'm not nearly as good of a host as Wilmer, which is why I always screw up the introductions and do everything just in a haphazardly kind of way. That's why he has a show and I don't. But you know what? That's okay. I think I give good substance, even if I don't give all the flash. But first of all, I want to ask Dr. Leon, how are you today, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, and thank you for this opportunity to talk.
Yeah, man. You know, I saw you wrote this article that I think everybody needs to look at. It's on yourblackworld.net, and you were basically referring to angry white males with guns as the new domestic terrorists. And that title, I mean, you know, just the concept of the article really got my attention, and I read it. And obviously, as usual, your analysis was on point. And people should know, if they don't already know, you're not a guy that just sort of shoots from the hip. You actually come back with facts and historical information that I think all of us need to know that kind of justifies your point. And I just had to ask you about that piece. So can you tell me, what was your thinking, Dr. Leon, when you wrote this, and what was the main point you were trying to get people to embrace?
Well, I think I'll answer the latter part of that first. The point that I was really trying to get people to focus on is, as we look at the Michael Dunn verdict, he was found, they had a hung jury on the actual murder charge. As we look at the George Zimmerman verdict as it relates to Trayvon Martin, and that was not guilty. One of the things that I feel is missing from the dialogue, from the narrative, is this discussion about, are there a group of predominantly white men that have guns that are angry and taking this out on innocent black males? And I think the answer to that question is yes. And what I tried to do with my piece was put it in a broader historical context. I think one of the mistakes that gets made a lot of times with these conversations is we tend to look at these events as though they take place or are taking place in a vacuum. And I don't think they are. So I looked at the Michael Dunn verdict. I looked at the Trayvon Martin issue. And then I said, well, back, I think it was 1998, we had James Byrd being dragged to death in Jasper, Texas. White men taking their hatred out on a black male. And then, of course, I went back and looked at the Tulsa riots. I looked at the Red Summer of 1919. And we have a historical continuum of angry white people taking their frustrations out on black people. And so I think that we need to expand the dialogue, and we need to start having this conversation. Am I right? I don't know. Am I wrong? I don't think so. But I think that this deserves a lot more discussion than mainstream media is giving it.
Well, I thought that was a great point you made. I mean, when I read the article, which people should certainly look at, I mean, it's right there on Your Black World, today, and we're going to keep it up there for the next few days. It was, by the way, the title is, Armed Angry White Males, the New Domestic Terrorists. I really read it and I was thinking to myself, gosh, he's making a really good point, because one thing that people often do, and you can probably speak to this more profoundly than I could, but people often disconnect history from the present. They sort of look at history as, it's in the past. It has nothing to do with today. And what people don't understand is that the present is created by the past, in a way that the past gives birth to the present. And you can't understand a child without understanding the DNA of its mother. In fact, understanding the mother is the best way to understand the child, because then you know where the child came from, what the roots are. And, right. When you look at our school system and the fact that history isn't taught very well, black history certainly isn't taught very well, you have people that sort of see things that happen. And you mentioned, things happening in a vacuum, where that's the perception. And people don't realize, look, there's a legacy here. Michael Dunn and the Zimmermans and others, they have historical predecessors. So they're kind of continuing a tradition of attacking young black men, because they perceive them as threats, things like that. So I just thought that was a great point to make. So, let me ask you this. Do you think that in the last few years that things have gotten worse? I mean, or do you feel that maybe social media has brought more of these cases to the surface, and that's why it suddenly seems that it's all happening all of a sudden, when the fact is maybe it was always happening, we just didn't see it in the mainstream media? Do you feel that, how do you feel the Obama presidency plays into this? I mean, what do you sort of see as the trend here over, say, the last 5 or 6 years?
Well, first of all, I think the answer to your question is all of the above. I opened the piece with a quote from President Obama, actually Senator Obama, back in 2008, where he was talking about small towns in Pennsylvania, and he said that people are becoming frustrated, they're losing their jobs, they're turning to their guns, their religion, and their fear of others, xenophobia, and blaming others for their plight. And he was castigated for having said that. John McCain jumped on him with both feet. Hillary Clinton, who he was running against for the Democratic nomination at the time, jumped on him with both feet. He was absolutely right. And that was really why I used that piece as the beginning of the piece that I wrote, because that was in 2008. Here we are in 2014, and we're seeing, in my opinion, exactly what he was speaking to playing itself out right in front of us. Nobody wants to connect the dots. Nobody wants to go back and say, wow, Senator Obama was absolutely right. I even believe Frantz Fanon wrote about this, at least from a xenophobic perspective, in Wretched of the Earth. Nobody wants to make those comparisons. So I think that social media is playing a role in this, in terms of bringing a lot more of these cases to the forefront a lot faster. I think the 24-hour news cycle does a lot to, enhance the dialogue on these issues, but only in the narrow perspective that mainstream media wants to present it. And that's why I think it's very important for us. We have to have this conversation, and we have to start looking at, is there an increasing number of particularly angry white males? I mean, one name that I did not mention, but we could have gone to, was Timothy McVeigh, the poster child for angry white males. Now, he didn't blow up the Mira building in Tulsa, Oklahoma, based upon a racial premise. But again, we've got a long history of this. And one more point quickly, too. One rebuttal that I've seen to the piece that I wrote is, well, there's an awful lot of black on black crime. Why aren't you writing about that? Well, that phenomenon is different from this phenomenon. Both are horrific. Both need attention. And there are an awful lot of people that are giving attention to the black on black crime issue in Chicago, in a lot of our other urban centers. But the basis of that is a different phenomenon than what I'm writing to. And I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, I think this is an important point to make. I mean, the silliest reason to divert attention from an important issue is to say, but wait, there's another issue that's just as important.
And why aren't you speaking about that?
Right, you can address both.
Because I can only think about one thing at a time.
Exactly. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if you could, commit a crime and then go to court and say, well, Your Honor, yeah, I know you want to prosecute me, but there are so many crimes that are so much worse than mine. I mean, it would be kind of silly, So I think that you are right on point, and it is funny that you mentioned that, because just today, I was sort of doing the opposite of what you're doing. I actually pointed the lens back on black people and said that I was actually talking about irresponsible parenting. And I said, look, this is as harmful to the community as the George Zimmermans of the world. And there were people who literally thought I was trying to interchange the two, that somehow we should let Zimmerman off the hook because black people are doing X, Y, Z. And it's like, no, as they say, it's not either or, it's both and, right? I've written about Zimmerman. We've talked about Zimmerman incessantly, but also let's talk about these other things too. Don't leave one thing off the table because you're talking about something else. Make sure everything gets a chance to be on the table. And I think, excuse me, I think you did a great job of doing that.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you so much for your time, number one. Thank you for your peace, number two, and thank you for your wisdom, number three. I always brag about Dr. Leon. Dr. Leon was instrumental with us, in our New Paradigm tour during 2013, which we're going to continue. He is what I call a scholar warrior, which is a scholar who understands how to really get bang for his buck, how to milk that PhD for what it's worth by bringing that expertise back to your community. And I think that we're in an age and an era where the definition of the black scholar in America needs to change. We can't be afraid to engage our communities. We can't be afraid to do that really by any means necessary, to use the cliche, in the sense that we've got social media, we've got avenues to reach each other. We need to do that. We can't hide away in our offices writing research papers that nobody's ever going to read. That doesn't benefit our community. So thank you very much, Dr. Leon. I so appreciate everything you do.
Hey, man, Boyce, all I can say is ditto. And to you, and thank you. And I appreciate you giving me this forum today, as well as publishing the piece that I wrote. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem, man. The door's always open to you, brother. And any scholars out there watching, or even anybody who has something good to say, you can email us. I'll give you my email address. It's easy. It's boyce@boycewatkins.com. You can email things directly to me. I can forward it to the editors. My goal is not for us to tell black people what to think. Our goal is to tell black people to think for themselves. So we respect you and we love you no matter where you come from. So I just want people to know that.
Thanks,
Thank you, Dr. Leon, and thank you all for checking us out at yourblackworld.net. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.